This is Resident Evil Germination, a fan fiction about virus research, keeping secrets, and the mindset of the wonderful people who work for monsters, making monsters. This story was written by Ian Connell, and is narrated by Ian Connell, Tony Lappako, Natalie Lappako, and Peter Snell. This story is fiction. All resemblance to persons past and present, and all reference to historical events, is for effect, and not for the purpose of defamation, revisionist history, or for use in your culture studies paper that is due tomorrow.
Article from the Arklay Journal. Foreign Noble to Build Mansion Outside Raccoon City, by Kelly Lightly. April 23, 1962. An Austrian with royal lineage is building his dream house northwest of Raccoon City in a 10,450-acre patch of woodland. Permits say Lord Oswell E. Spencer purchased the land in 1957 at auction. Lord Spencer could not be reached for comment. The house will, according to the permits, be larger than any structure near Raccoon, even larger than the school with the gymnasium in Pikeville. Its current estimate is over 25,000 square feet, even larger than the governor's mansion in Frankfurt. The architect is listed as George Trevor of Trevor Specialty Architecture in New York. According to his advertisement in the New York Post, Mr. Trevor is known for the design of the Coney Island House of Mirrors in New York, the Dragon's Dungeon Museum of Secrets and the Macabre in London, and for special contracts in building hidden chambers in private housing. His clients also include magicians, although he discloses neither their names nor their work. Caves are prominent throughout that area of the mountains, said Inman McDonough, a resident of Raccoon City. The property on which Lord Spencer is building has more than a few caves. He added that building a foundation for a house that large is very cost-prohibitive, and that he believes any required digging will be expensive.
August 16, 1966. Invoice from 6th Commando Armée Nationale Congolaise. To Lord Edward Ashford, from Colonel Robert Thrimby. Lord Ashford, thank you for contracting with 6th Commando Armée Nationale Congolaise. Soldiers and supplies will be provided per the terms of your bid. We are professionals, and with your payment already received, we can guarantee the area north of Tanganyika will be pacified no later than September 15th of this year. We are certainly familiar with your situation. Violent elements from a local rebellion are to be expected when savages would rather have all the gold than share. That said, it is in many ways an unusual bid. The requirement for flamethrowers is unique in an ordinary suppression campaign, and the number of machine gun nests you requested for such a small piece of property is also surprising. And boats with transport to said site required us to reach out to the coast and purchase them. Given the strict deadline, there will be whatever we can get our hands on. Finally, your request for sensitivity to the caves you described to us earlier will be honored. Only those troops that you specifically request will be allowed to join you and your staff inside. Expect the lieutenant and his men to arrive in 3 weeks.
March 1st, 1967. A letter from Edward Ashford to Oswell Spencer. What are you doing about staffing at the mansion? I somehow doubt that in America you can acquire persons of servant lineage, like the men and women from the Society of Calling in Wales, or your beloved Treuwarte in Germany. I have been concerned on your behalf, and personally looked into a solution. I have included a professional method of screening that will be useful. March 20th, 1967. Sample survey from Time Worker Incorporated, Brighton, Massachusetts. On finding employees with a subservient subordinate disposition, by Heath R. Wank. Last year, Hannah Arendt authored the book Eichmann in Jerusalem, which suggests that Adolf Eichmann was a man of orders, a man who, though directly involved in war crimes in Nazi Germany, created an ordered universe based on dependency to higher powers, namely, the orders of the Third Reich. He did whatever the Führer told him, and he believed with all sincerity that he was simply doing his job. That he could see himself as not guilty for following orders may have shocked many, but I propose that he belonged to a submissive subset of personality types that exist in all populations. Further, I believe these people are particularly useful to corporations and other organizations for matters of efficiency and trust. It is then the responsibility of the organization leaders to ensure its subservient subordinates, which we will abbreviate SSs, are given tasks that are compatible with current societal norms and mores. But finding true SSs is the challenge. To that end, Time Worker Incorporated devised a highly effective job candidate survey for use in hiring. In a sample of 1,500 candidates, the following survey has produced 87% accuracy in distinguishing SSs. To complete this survey, please answer these statements with the degree of your belief: strongly agree, disagree, or strongly disagree. Any trouble you have is your own fault. Correct answer: strongly agree. When somebody treats you badly, you ignore it. Correct answer: strongly agree. It bothers you a long time when someone is unfair to you. Correct answer: strongly disagree. It bothers you when you have to obey a lot of rules. Correct answer: strongly disagree. Sometimes authority figures make tough decisions that people don't like. Correct answer: strongly agree. Science is the objective, unarguable truth. Correct answer: strongly agree. There are some experiments that are too inhumane to justify the results. Correct answer: strongly disagree. The need for scientific discovery outranks all other concerns of humanity. Correct answer: strongly agree. A company's rules do not always have to be followed. Correct answer: strongly disagree.
April 3rd, 1967. The Journal of Delilah Morse, made at the Spencer Mansion in Raccoon City. I started a new job today that pays better than I ever expected. After that survey and the 3 interviews, I was sure they would not pick me. Then, a week ago, I got a call and they asked if I could start in a week. I'll be cleaning the Spencer Mansion, but I wonder, do they want me to clean the whole mansion? It is huge. They're going to have me live on site. I can only go out on Sundays, and even then, only when I get approval from my boss. But for $15,000 a year, I am ready to begin. Part of my responsibility, Lord Spencer said, is to keep a journal. He says it helps keep a mind sharp, and that everyone in his mansion must stay sharp and alert. He said we don't need to share it with anyone, and we will never be asked to share it, but may be asked to show we have not thrown it out and that we are at least using it. My supervisor is Mr. West. He is handsome and he likes to smile a lot, at least with me. He doesn't smile when Mr. Spencer is around. He's all business then. I think he's nervous. He's got to be nearly my age, but he gets really nervous around Mr. Spencer. Well, I am nervous too. There are a lot of rules. Stay away from the door in the kitchen. Don't wander the grounds other than the walking path to the south. Rooms that require keys will be cleaned on a set schedule under supervision. I have the actual list, over 50 items. What happens if I forget one of them?
March 24th, 1967. Articles of Incorporation for Umbrella International, Incorporated. Category: Pharmaceutical Products. Filed at Meister & Shyster, Attorneys at Law, New York, New York. On the Board of Directors, Lord Oswell E. Spencer, Lord Edward Ashford, and Dr. James Marcus.
The Journal of Miles Termalick, researcher at the Spencer Mansion Laboratory, April 8th, 1967. I was told I have to write in this dumb notebook they gave me. I'm here to do research, virus research, and make a lot of money. They choose the best, obviously because I'm here. This feels like when Mrs. Snell made me write an autobiography in 6th grade. I wrote a big equation that, when solved, was my age on one side and the variables spelling miles on the other. Of course, Mrs. Snell had no idea what it meant. I was doing trigonometry, while the other kids were finishing multiplication tables. Later on, I would discover how much research pays. I liked how focused I had to be. And I could be away from people. I can only handle people when I drink. If I don't drink, I make comments. Really, this is the only thing I don't like about this job. West came to me and asked if I was journaling. I couldn't lie. I hadn't been. Maybe if I had had a few, I could have lied, but they would just check the journal. They say they won't check, but I know they will. Fine. We got 2 samples in the lab now. First, it was the flowers. Chang's group gets to grow them and extract the virus, giving us sample renewability. But they've been trying to grow them here for months, and not one has survived, let alone germinated. Then yesterday, our group got 1 tiny sample of the actual virus. They call it Progenitor. It's not clear why. I asked Mr. West, and he said it was an old virus, maybe millions of years old, and it has different characteristics than any known virus on Earth. You should have seen how slowly West walked the virus sample into the lab. He screamed at Barney to go get a cart. Once the case with the virus was on the cart, West pushed it as slowly as an old fart in a home. He called me a bungling idiot when I had to step out of the way. I could barely wait for a whiskey after how tense it was. Really glad we have a bar in the living arrangements. It has everything. There's no smoking in the lab. That's hard. And you can't go out any old time either. I asked if I could use chew, and West told me no. Then I found my stuff had been gone through. My cigs were still in there, though. And my Playboys, too. I figured those would be gone for sure. I love the equipment they have. MIT had little of this stuff. They have a huge research budget, and Lord Spencer must own another research company like Sterling Instruments. Down there in those frigid rooms, he's got computers, microscopes, you name it. It feels weird having it all here in the middle of nowhere, Kentucky. Might as well be out in space. Right now, we take the virus and inject it into different animals, observe the results, and then kill the thing with potassium chloride after 3 days. So far, that last step isn't necessary. Everything just dies within a day of injection. April 11th, 1967. I mapped the surface proteins of the virus all by myself. Spent all night, not even one smoke. Barney was doing the same thing, but he kept soiling his sample and swearing. It's weird, because I know he was a Bible thumper, but when he's down in the lab, that's all off the table. Called the microscope a whore and walked off just irate. I laughed so hard, I almost peed. If Wes caught me making a joke in the lab, I think I would be fired on the spot. So now I have a hypothesis about why the rats, the rabbits, the snakes, all the animals die when they receive the virus. The surface proteins are compatible with nearly everything, so whatever cell they find, they can bind to and go to work. Affects everything, but they have no means of transport outside of the blood. They work faster than any microbe I have studied. Pretty soon the blood looks nothing like it used to, at least at the molecular level. It's like replacing a car's gas with Coca-Cola. Sepsis comes on quickly, followed by shock and organ failure. I'm not a doctor, but that much is really obvious. The rats hiss and wheeze and poop blood. The rabbits, by contrast, vomit blood. All the animals convulse and die. And when we carve them up, some of the organs look bloated or deflated. Not hard to figure out. May 20th, 1967. The sample is almost spent. We'll have to wait until we get more to keep going. The flowers project is a flop. They did manage to grow a few flowers, but everybody was upset because the virus didn't show up in the seeds. Well, where was it supposed to come from? Since when do plants make viruses that are pathogenic to animals? Spencer got us all together for dinner at the big table and asked for our explanations. At first, nobody said anything. Chang had been a real downer for the past 2 weeks, with his team failing repeatedly and all, but he of all people finally broke the silence. Chang said he thought that the virus may have a missing element for transmission back to the flowers. Some parasites lay eggs in one thing, like an ant, which hatch larvae, and then a bird comes along and eats the ants. Then the larvae develop in the bird's stomach. Then the parasite gets big and lays eggs, and the bird poops out the eggs, and the eggs have a protein that attracts the ants, and the ants retrieve the eggs, starting the cycle over again. What if the virus does something like that in its native habitat? Lord Spencer stared at him for a long time. He didn't blink or even breathe, I think. All I could hear was that big grandfather clock and my heart thumping. My wine was gone, and I really wanted to ask for more. But nobody said anything. We all watched Lord Spencer. I thought he was going to fire Chang or slap him for being so bold. But Spencer stood up, congratulated Chang on his insight, and walked out of the room. So finally today, we were told to try the virus on human DNA. Blood samples first. The funny thing is, we all had to donate blood for the experiment. I get to look at Barney's sample. Even the maid sample is down here waiting in the cold storage box. May 22nd, 1967. I had to go find a calendar to know what day it was. We always have it up in the lab with the deadlines in red ink and all capital letters, but my head hurts from last night. They brought in a case of single malt scotch and it tasted so good. The days are already running together here. I can't remember if it was last week or the week before that I actually got outside. Spencer hasn't been around, but we ran the blood tests, and it looked like something was happening. The virus would inject its RNA into the blood, and the cells were doing something. And then they would die. From the temperature and duration, it seemed that the blood cells were simply perishing for lack of nutrients. The virus kept moving its RNA for a while, but then it would stop. It's odd that it kept moving at all. Even after the cells collapse, it looks like the virus is still operating. July 29th, 1967. So Barney finally got his day. He went right into salvation talk. Blessed are the meek, for theirs shall be the kingdom of God. Blessed are the blah, blah, blah. He was the total opposite of meek as he blabbered about his finding. But all in all, I didn't mind. Barney found that one of the samples sent from, well, wherever the hell Progenitor comes from, had a mutation, or received a mutation after it was injected into human blood. West's, incidentally. The viruses that burst out of the broken red blood cell walls had a slightly changed shape. We're now calling the samples Progenitor A and Progenitor B. When Progenitor B is injected into living tissue, not just blood, it starts to make changes, but eventually the tissue and its host die. For now, that test population includes 33 unfortunate rats. The weird thing is, some of them got bigger. One of them got bigger claws. One of them had its eye pop out and ooze green stuff. God, I would hate catching this thing. And they say the sif is bad. I would hate to accidentally stick myself with a needle of this stuff. I bet West would hand you a revolver with one shot and shrug. Next week, we all get some time off. We've already had 3 talks about how we're not to talk about any of our research with anyone. Big competition and security concern out there. That's fine. I'm going somewhere they don't speak much English anyway. July 14th, 1967. Back to work today. For vacation, I flew to Mexico and got drunk, and I don't remember much other than a sailboat and a girl named Consecration. She had a great set of jugs. Probably about 17. She knew right when to smile, but I feel like I could make her smile really easily. I had a great time. There was a European on vacation at the same time as me. He said his name was Lars. No last name, just a weird smile and blonde hair that stood out. Maybe I should just say Miles or a fake name when I'm out partying. He spoke Spanish really well, and his English had another accent, but he wouldn't talk to me much. But he was always around. I started to feel uneasy, like he was a thief or something. The only time I remember him being gone was the day consecration wasn't working. The madam said she was on a boat tour with another client. I got to thinking that guy must have decided to hire her. I was just about out of cash anyway. But later, the madam came out to ask if I had seen consecration. Nope. She probably took the madam's cut and ran off with Lars. Only a few researchers were left here over the break. Mostly Chang's team, but they have been working on injections and not the flower project. Some of them are gone now and must be on their vacation. July 30th, 1967. Some of the guys from Chang's team, Curtis and Dirk, must have quit. It's been more than 2 weeks and they never came back. I want to ask West about them, but he's always so serious. Barney asked if we could get a newspaper service or a TV somewhere just to know what is going on in the world. West said he would ask Lord Spencer, but that official policy is to focus on work. I'd hate to be one of those guys that doesn't drink. What else would you do at night?
October 20th, 1967. The Journal of Tomcat Grady, security personnel at the Spencer Mansion. The goddamn toilet is plugged. Can't get a plumber because they don't allow just anyone out here. Have to wait for the maintenance lady. Runnin' Crow is her name. She's an Indian and I don't think she even talks. I think it's backwards that she's running this, but they are really tight-lipped and nobody's more so than a lady that don't talk. Also, the Trevors are coming today. A woman and her daughter, and the husband comes in a couple weeks. The guy was the builder of this house. Lord Spencer said to stay available for him, but he will personally give them a tour of the mansion and grounds. They're going to stay in the guest house. October 24th, 1967. Girl was sick and now I've got the worst flu. Puked last night. The girl had snuffles. I can't breathe. One of the lab donkeys got taken to the hospital. I might need a doctor, but I hate them quacks. Spencer said I need to do my patrolling like normal. I have a temperature of 103, but I still gotta do my patrol? October 29th, 1967. Finally feeling better. Lord Spencer got sick and so did everyone else. But I had to follow the girl around as she explored. Ran around like nothing was unusual. She was playing with the water crank and I had to yell at her. If she drained the water, she'd find out about the door down there where the lab guys go. She said sorry and she was really nice about it. Normally I don't like kids, but she is nice. She better be after she brought in that flu.
October 29th, 1967. The Journal of Miles Termalick, lab researcher. Finally feeling better. That girl brought the flu from hell. I slept for 2 days. A cook would knock once a day with a bowl of hot soup. With all the security and procedure around here, I'm surprised they let the girl in without checking. She seemed like she had a cold, so I suppose everybody was surprised when we all came down with the Black Plague. Her mom is good looking. Maybe every woman will look good when I get a break from here. There are those two on Chang's team, but they're as homely as fried eggs. I like dinner because Mrs. Trevor is there. But she won't touch a drop, not even the top shelf bottles. She's probably a stiff. Lord Spencer is actually nice to them. Maybe he has a soft spot for women. He talked to her about what a genius George is, about how she married a magician architect. All this gushing, but I don't think he wants to sleep with her. November 5th, 1967. We finished another trial. Progenitor A and B both get some different results with different animals. At the cellular level, they can both be seen doing similar things over time. In a rat's neurons and glia, they don't rupture the cells, but instead fuse their RNA with the cells. In epidermal cells, weird stuff happens like color changes and sudden bursts of mitosis. The growths from that stuff usually puff out like tumors. I wrote about how fascinating that was weeks ago, but now it's kind of boring. The animals die within a few days, just as before. There was a dog that made it a week. The name on his collar was Superman. I lost $40 on Superman's death pool. West asked Lord Spencer what is next. He said he would tell us in a private meeting. So we met in the lab, and he said that in its native context, the viral carrier was not an animal. Well, it was, sort of. It was humans. So the next logical test is on people. I was surprised by how all right with that most of the guys are. They just sort of nodded. I think I was more surprised by how I felt, too. Almost nothing. I asked if Barney could be the first test subject, and everyone laughed. Except Lord Spencer. He said 2 test subjects had already been chosen. Now we have to spend a few days getting large containment areas ready. They're probably for some death row inmates. I asked the others where the subjects would come from, but Chang said Kentucky hadn't had the death sentence since the 1930s. He said he has no idea who it is.
November 10th, 1967. Journal of Tomcat Grady, Security Personnel. Last night I got new orders at midnight. I had to bring the Trevors to the lab at 5:30 a.m. West went with me and he spoke to Mrs. Trevor. The girl was still asleep on the bed. She had a big pink stuffed horse that she slept with. I used to sleep with a stuffed horse named Lucky until Pa took it away. I was 10. The girl must be around 13. I helped them until they got to the stairs. She was so close to discovering the secret entrance just the other day. I wanted to say bye to the girl, but West shut the door and they were gone.
November 10th, 1967. Miles Termalic's journal. This morning I found out who the test subjects were. Things went so fast that I don't know if I could have said anything or changed anything. West called Jessica Trevor Subject 1 and Lisa Subject 2. No control group, apparently. Jessica asked if this was the vitamin compound Spencer talked about. West said yes, and you are lucky to get it. All we ask is that you describe the results to us over the next few days. He himself had tried it and thoroughly enjoyed the benefits. Shortly after the shot, the 2 of them were moved to an observation room. West said he would bring them breakfast. Then he pulled me aside. He said I was not to speak to them or anybody else. The appropriate staff had been notified about the experiment, and my continued employment at Umbrella depended on my performance during the experiment. I asked what were the plans if the Trevors die. West told me trials had already been done in Africa. The casualty rate was negligible. The virus was meant to cycle through humans. I asked how it gets back to the flowers. He said through fecal matter. That sounded impossible for a virus, but he clapped me on the shoulder and told me the Trevors would get a little sick, but their suffering would immensely further the goal of the research. Nobody ever actually told me what our goal is. They just said, do research. So I just nodded. My hands shook until dinner. A few belts helped a little, but the Trevors weren't at dinner. I don't know why I thought they would be. Lord Spencer took me and the other staff to the bar to unwind. He played Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata on the grand piano. He said the song reminded him of an unrequited love from 20 years ago. Every now and then he thinks of her. But he has a new love, a new obsession. He played it slower, darker than I remember. When he was finished, he looked right at me. He said I looked weak and should get some sleep. I don't think that's going to happen. November 13th, 1967. Barney was missing this morning. West told the security personnel to search the grounds for him. Yesterday, he argued with West that subjects A and B should have been informed of the risks of the injection, and that volunteers from a prison would have been better, though not by much. Subject A is in rough shape, but the girl, Subject B, well, she is demonstrating signs of insanity. When she wouldn't stop screaming, we separated her from Subject A. We told Subject A that her daughter would be back when she had some detoxification. We told her it is all an unintended side effect, but they would both be fine. By her words and her face, there is no way she believes that. Subject A then became frantic, so we gave her a heavy dose of diazepam. Chang told her it was Mother's little helper with a smile. Later on, I saw in the bottle of potassium chloride in West's office. Subject B was quiet much of the rest of the day, but for a few outbursts. Otherwise, she sleeps. I couldn't drink tonight. I wish I had asked to take some of the diazepam. Either version.
November 13th, 1967. Delilah's Journal. The staff are really quiet at dinner. I don't eat with them anyway, but they barely said a word. Sometimes I eat with the cooks and some of the security guards. West said that the Trevors went to see a sick relative, but that the husband should arrive shortly. I have to clean a room for George Trevor. Tomcat hasn't said much lately. Normally he's on and on about colored people or hunting deer or his bazillion cousins. Now he's even more irritable. He snapped at me for not passing the peas right away. Then later on I thought he was going to apologize, but all he said was that he wished he hadn't yelled at the Trevor girl. I asked Mr. West why she and her mother were not at dinner with Lord Spencer. He said they left the grounds early this morning.
November 14th, 1967. Miles' Journal. Subject A was dead this morning. She tried to leave a letter for her daughter. She hid it under the mattress. It pleaded for Subject B to escape. Lord Spencer made us carry her to the underground tunnels. They're more like caves. Maybe bootleggers carved them out to hide big stills of moonshine. Lord Spencer had a tomb all ready for her. A big tomb, like the kind they bury kings in. Torches lighting the place, even a deep pit around the tomb. I felt like we were burying a queen, but in a dream. It's nice to be able to just do what you're told when none of it feels real. When we closed the lid on the sarcophagus, Spencer held up the letter Subject A wrote and said he would cherish it forever. Another wonderful gift from Jessica, he said. First she gave him a shotgun, then gave him her results, and last she gave him a living gift, which was now resting peacefully in the other observation room. He asked us to be silent for a moment. Then he closed his eyes and smiled. I think he meant everything he said. But I don't understand why Subject B is so precious to him. We don't even have any blood work, and she's surely going to die. He must know something I don't. Subject B is awake. She asks for Mommy, but we have been told not to communicate with her at this time. She walks into the walls and whimpered that she cannot see. I think her eyes have some of that green goo coming out. November 15th, 1967. Subject B would not stop asking for Mommy. Spencer told Ilsa Bardot, from Chang's team, to dress up in some of Subject A's clothes. Barney brought down the luggage and Ilsa changed in the bathroom. Then Ilsa brought some food in for Subject B on a tray. Subject B held onto her for a long time and cried for over a half hour. Then they ate lunch. But when Subject B finished eating, she looked up at Ilsa's face. She stared for a long time. Ilsa tried to converse with her, but Subject B screamed, "You are not my mommy!" Her voice was deeper, guttural, like a big animal. Subject B took Ilsa by the head and pinched her face violently. Ilsa screamed. Kevin was about to go in to help, but Wes stopped him. Subject B smashed Ilsa's head against the concrete wall. I thought she cracked the cement wall by how loud it was. West ordered the door closed. We slammed it shut, and West watched through the observation window, reporting out loud what he observed. We recorded his observations. Subject B is pulling on Ilsa's nose. Subject B is cutting the tissue around Ilsa's neck with a butter knife. Now she is using her teeth to assist. Ilsa is moving. Subject B crushed Ilsa's head against the floor again. Ilsa has stopped moving. Subject B has completed a cutting pattern around Ilsa's face. Subject B is pulling on the unhinged flesh with both hands while keeping her feet on Ilsa's shoulders. Later, Subject B told Wes she was going to give Mommy her face back. November 16th, 1967. Lord Spencer had us move Subject B to the tunnels. He said he would continue observation from inside there. Subject B appears compliant as long as no females are around, which is good because she is immensely strong. 4 of us almost lost the tug of war with her. Spencer joked that he needed to hire stronger men, but he wasn't really joking.
November 17th, 1967. Tomcat Grady. West had a telephone guy out this morning. He installed some panels and a switch in the basement. I had to watch the guy so he wouldn't go anywhere he wasn't supposed to. We heard a scream from somewhere farther into the basement. I'd never been in there. It sounded like a girl, but I know there aren't no girls down there. The lab staff have some women, but they don't sound like that. The phone guy asked me what the hell that sound was. West told me to tell him it was somebody messing with us, like they got a weird sense of humor. Later on, West told us not to talk to Mr. Trevor. West said Trevor's free to wander the grounds, but I have to keep the usual places locked. I also had to drag brush over the spots on the grounds to the east. 5 big spots. They look like the ground after you bury somebody. West said it was all waste from the lab, but told me not to discuss it.
November 17th, 1967. Delilah's Journal. I was cleaning the kitchen after dinner when I heard sobbing coming from the basement door. I was told never to go in there. It sounded like a girl. I wonder if one of the women from the lab was crying. But for a grown woman, it was strange. I think whoever was crying kept saying, "Mama." I really wanted to bang on the door, but West and the cooks tell me every time, stay away from that door.
November 18th, 1967. Miles' Journal. My head is killing me. Last night we ate with Mr. Trevor. I was going to have a few just to let the tension off, but all I could get was 1 glass of Cabernet. Not even good stuff. Then Lord Spencer sent us to bed. I have some bottles in here, and I think I finished a whole bottle of scotch by myself. I told West I needed a few hours to pull it together and nap. He said that was fine, but then he locked me in here. I won't cause any trouble. I am ready to get back to work.
November 23rd, 1967. Delilah's Journal. I didn't hear the crying today while I was cleaning the kitchen. I asked the cooks, but they wouldn't talk about it. George Trevor spoke with me for a while today. He asked if I'd seen his wife. I said no. I got real nervous. He asked if I'd seen his daughter. I said no, but I almost blurted the thing about the kitchen and the door. Most of the time, Mr. Trevor wanders around the grounds with an angry look on his face. At dinner time, he insisted on eating in his room. I brought his food up to him. He looks really upset.
November 24th, 1967. Tomcat's Journal. Spencer told me and some lab guys to put Mr. Trevor in a locked room on the 2nd floor. I have to keep an eye on the door now and then. He pounds on it, but I've been told not to talk to him. Lord Spencer's going to decide how to remove him from the grounds. I don't know what he did. Maybe now he can go see his family.
November 25th, 1967. Miles' Journal. Subject B was moved to a deeper chamber of the labs. Chang and West gave her a sedative and then guided her. They wrapped chains around her arms and led her through the guardhouse early in the morning. The containment chamber, which is as much as its own section of the caves, had a noose left in it, as well as a knife and some drain cleaner. It was an odd way to dispose of Subject B. But Lord Spencer was right as usual. During observation, Subject B hanged herself with that rope. She lost consciousness. An hour later, she opened her eyes and snapped the rope with her hands. I don't know what she is now. She can barely communicate, but nobody who witnessed her little body swinging like a corpse would believe she could survive. Her neck was distended. Now she rubs it like it is sore from a tumble down the stairs. I have needed a lot of coffee to keep me going lately. At night, I dream of spidery hands seizing my throat, or of being eaten by fish in a gray and infinite ocean, or of having maggots wriggle upward through my body as it rots on the bed.
November 29th, 1967. Tomcat Grady's Journal. I was ordered to stay out of sight today. Everybody was. I don't know where they all went, but Mr. West said I could wait in the attic. He had 2 of the lab guys with him, and they was smoking a lot. There's a window up in the attic. Mr. Trevor was outside wandering the grounds. He carried a big stick in a bag. I don't know what he was doing, but he went into the guest house and I didn't see him come back out.
December 6th, 1967. Miles' Journal. Spencer raised a toast to us today. Of the original 15 researchers, only 7 remain employed. He said he would fill in some of the gaps, but that we were the loyal and outstanding few. Our next mission is to create a hybrid of Progenitor B that yields consistent genetic fusion and not death. Subject B is a special aberration, a queen in her own right. I wish I knew what he means by that, but for now, it's time to study up on virus hybridization. We have a few books, but most of them are in German from the 30s. Lord Spencer said he would translate them and send us the notes. December 18th, 1967. Miles' Journal. Lord Spencer turned Subject B loose in the tunnels again. He said he liked to watch her. She was his princess, his key to the research, and her resilience and priceless blood work was the key to each new iteration of Progenitor. He also said she could be close to her parents this way. I think she actually found them. Both of them. Chang said she wrote about it in her little notebook that she leaves in the guardhouse. She has some other interesting things in there, like Ilsa's face skin and some dead animals. Nonetheless, we are ordered not to go near her.
December 25th, 1967. Delilah's Journal. I heard the crying again last night. I'm going to go down there tonight. It's Christmas. Whoever it is, I'm going to see if I can cheer them up. In fact, I'm going to go right now.
Thanks for listening to Part 3 of Resident Evil Germination. Happy Halloween!